Welcome to TBL Scope on the Big Lead. I'm Ryan Glasspiegel. That's Brian Giuffra. Today we're talking the opening of the XFL. They relaunched this weekend on Fox, ABC, and ESPN. Brian, what were your initial impressions of the league?
They were very positive for me. I thought that the play on the field, number one, was really quality, especially when you're comparing it to the AAF. These teams seemed a little bit more polished. Obviously, there's room to grow there, but I really thought that the play on the field stood out to me. It seemed also, based on everything that I was reading and everything that I saw from fans who were at the game, specifically at MetLife Stadium, that the fan experience was really great. And to me, that's going to be a huge part of it is can you keep people interested? The ratings came out. They were pretty solid. And of course, that's going to be important in terms of the bottom line for this league. That's how you're going to generate your revenue is based on ratings. But, you know, when it comes to the three things that mattered most to me, the play on the field, the fan experience, and then the at-home viewing experience, all of those were real positives and definitely a great starting point for this young league.
I agree with you. The TV production was especially professional on Fox, ESPN, and ABC. The graphics were great. They shot it. It looked like an NFL or a high-level college football game pretty much across the board. I liked the announcers with Kurt Menefee and Joel Klatt, or Steve Levy and Greg McElroy, or Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson. It just feels like you're watching professional football, and that, to me, exceeded what the AAF provided last year. And so I think that was a big positive, and there is a lot for the league to build on as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think that's really the key to me is how do you build on this? Because you don't want to lose that momentum. We already saw that with the AAF. They had a lot of buzz going on around week one, but it really was only because of those two kind of big hits. And you can't build a sustainable business that way. You really need to be able to take one success and figure out how to multiply it and make it even better. So I'm going to be really interested to see how they continue to build, like I said, specifically around the offense, which at time was lacking. And I think that's, you know, where you're going to be able to really make some waves. I think, to me, they'd rather it be a 50-49 game than a 21-10 game, which we saw a lot of this week.
I don't know about 50-49. That's a lot.
That might be asking too much.
The two Sunday games combined to score 50 points, and that's not enough. And so to that point, I wrote about three things that I'd like to see the XFL change to improve on. One of them is to shorten the quarters from 15 minutes to 13 minutes. Vince McMahon stood there in the introductory press conference and said that 3-hour football games are too long. I don't know how he feels about 3-hour wrestling shows that he airs every week, but I digress there. I'd like to see the quarters be a little bit shorter, though, so we can get in and out of the game in 2.5 hours. I'd like to see more mobile quarterbacks. The combination of the pass protection and the abilities of the quarterbacks to throw from the pocket. I think that in this league, it would be more optimal to have an option quarterback, kind of the Pat White, West Virginia archetype, where you're running around and you've got other fast people flanked to the sides of him. That might be more exciting. And then one other last change I'd like to see made is make an exception so that one player can exceed the salary cap rules, and that way you can have players like, I don't know, Adrian Peterson, or maybe this is pie in the sky, but Tim Tebow, just people that viewers have heard of. I think that Cardale Jones is by far the most famous player in the league. From there's a big drop off to Matt McGloin and Aaron Murray, and from then it's essentially just a bunch of anonymous helmets. So as we look for a way for the XFL to capitalize on and even sustain their momentum, those are three things that stood out to me.
Now, let's not start bashing Matt McGloin as a Guardians guy. You know, he's my man. But I do agree with you, especially about the point about getting bigger star talent. That's kind of what I was alluding to when I was saying, what's the next step for this league? And I really think that if you could attract even 4 guys who have big names and disperse them around the teams, you're going to get more interest in it. You mentioned Cardell Jones. I imagine that a lot of Ohio State fans were like, hey, whatever happened to this guy? I want to actually watch him, and I'm going to tune in to see what he's up to. And I think, to me, that's where the XFL can really succeed, is by somehow making more connections to that college fan base and even to that NFL fan base that remembers that Matt McGloin started a playoff game for the Raiders, which is, kind of crazy to think about. But like, that's the sort of stuff I mean when I say they need to build on this success. And by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, but I really loved some of the rule changes. I'd be interested to see if the NFL adopts that kickoff rule change. I mean, I know it eliminates onside kick in a sense, but it was really interesting to me, just the dynamic about that.
No, I totally agree with you. I would like to see the NFL adopt that kickoff change because it reduces the collisions that have caused head trauma a lot on the play, and B, it opens it up for bigger returns than we've seen. Look, you mentioned the onside kick. I hate to break it to you, the onside kick died before last season, and so the onside kick is gone. It's not walking through that door, to quote Rick Pitino. And so I would agree with you. I'd like to see the NFL adopt that. I also like the transparency with the refs during the officiating reviews. The AAF did something similar last year. Kudos to them for that. But if we could have transparency throughout review processes in the NFL, then maybe the audience would respect the ultimate outcome of them more.
Well, listen, I think, to me, that's probably more of a long-term play in terms of getting like audience respect. I think what they're doing, even when you talk about those sideline interviews, I mean, that was just interesting. It's a talking point. And the more talking points that they can create, the more we're going to be discussing them on a Monday. And if you look across the board at all of the different programs, everybody was discussing the AAF, the XFL this week. And there's a good reason, because there's a lot to talk about. So what are those next things? I mean, the sideline interviews, it's going to get stale at some point, even if you have somebody cursing every single weekend. So I think that, to me, is going to be the biggest thing. Is this is a great start. They've done some really great quality work so far, and now it's about taking this idea and building off of it.
And then the one thing we didn't talk about yet is the ratings. ABC had 3.3 million viewers. Austin Karp of the Sports Business Journal said that last year in the same window, the X Games averaged under 600,000 viewers. So I think if the XFL on ABC and Fox can settle into hovering around 2 million viewers a week, then all of a sudden we're looking at a sustainable league. For example, Brian, WWE SmackDown on Fox averages about 2.5 million viewers per week, and Fox pays WWE a little bit over $200 million a year for that package. The whole kind of content marketplace has been rapidly fragmenting over the last 10 years, where so much content is moving towards either streaming platforms or just premium non-ad supported platforms like HBO. And so if you can assemble an audience of 1.5 to 2 million people, that's valuable for advertisers in this day and age. And so we'll have to see if the XFL can sustain interest in March and then even April, when the weather's starting to get nicer and there's also baseball competition. But for now, this was definitely a promising start.
I couldn't agree more. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you throw around numbers like 200 million. All of a sudden, that's getting Tim Tebow interested. I guarantee you that. Money talks, right? And I think that they could get some really cool people and continue to build off of that if they're able to sustain those ratings.
This has been TBL Scope. That's Brian Giuffra. I'm Ryan Glasspiegel. We're hoping to do this somewhat regularly. We appreciate your sticking with us through the end.